When I was a Christian, I was literally brought to tears at times. When I thought about the passion, the sacrifice of my Lord, and the great gift of salvation he gave me through his blood and suffering. The passage that so often moved me to tears was a very well-known one. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Never in all my years as a God-botherer did I take the time to unpick the true meaning behind this verse and the gospel story that underpins it. I'm not talking about allegory here. I'm not suggesting that there's a hidden narrative. I'm talking about the implications of the sacrifice, the crucifixion, the burial and resurrection of humanity's scapegoat to God. It never occurred to me that, in summary, God sacrificed himself to save us from himself. I never thought to question why an all-powerful God couldn't just forgive us without all the melodrama, without the histrionics and self-harm. Just what was this God trying to teach us with this sado-masochistic display? Nowadays, I get it. This is a parody of the Jewish scapegoat custom where two goats are taken to the city walls. One is loaded down with weights and driven out to die in the desert. That's the scapegoat. The other is allowed to go free, symbolizing the people now free of their sins, which are taken away symbolically by the goat with the heavy weights. Jesus was the scapegoat, and the criminal Barabbas represented the people freed from sin. That sounds very much like the post hoc machinations of ordinary men trying to make sense of the death of their Messiah. They couldn't just admit that they'd backed the wrong horse, or goat, so to speak. But be that as it may, God, as Jesus, had himself tortured to death, or at least to something a bit like death. It's not really death, is it? He's eternal. He's not dead. He just had a few days off. The self-harm is over now, and it's business as usual in heaven, with his Father, who is also himself. So nothing was really sacrificed, and nothing was given. It's a bit of a con job, really, isn't it? That's not the only con job, though. Look at the second part of John 3:16. That whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Well, not according to the Bible. Romans 9:14-24 speaks about God creating some people just to be damned. They have no choice. They have no chance of salvation. What shall we say then? There is no injustice with God, is there? May it never be. For he says to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I have compassion. So then, it does not depend on the man who wills or the man who runs, but on God who has mercy. For the scripture says to Pharaoh, for this very purpose I raised you up, to demonstrate my power in you, and that my name might be proclaimed throughout the whole earth. So then he has mercy on whom he desires, and he hardens whom he desires. You will say to me, then why does he still find fault? For who resists his will? On the contrary, who are you, O man, who answers back to God? The thing moulded will not say to the moulder, why did you make me like this, will it? Or does not the potter have a right over the clay to make from the same lump one vessel for honourable use and another for common use? What if God, although willing to demonstrate his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much patience vessels of wrath prepared for destruction, and he did so to make known the riches of his glory upon vessels of mercy, which he prepared beforehand for glory. Even us whom he also called, not from among Jews only, but also from among Gentiles. So much for free will, eh? Whosoever believeth in him sounds like a choice, but apparently it's not. Assuming, as I think would be likely if this God were real, I've been created just so that when this brief life comes to an end, I can burn in hell. That's my purpose, for the greater glory of God. Free will doesn't come into it. Devotion doesn't come into it. Neither does faith, and works will be useless too. There is nothing I can do to avoid damnation, because God has already picked me for the flames. He made that decision before I was born. If you really want to understand why so many of us reject this monstrous God of Abraham, read the Bible. You'll be amazed at how little you know about this vicious, capricious, and downright sadistic product of the barbaric, primitive imagination.